It's remarkably easy to slip into the habit of complaining, pointing out flaws, expressing irritation, and dwelling on what's not working. This impulse feels familiar and often justified, especially when life feels unfair or frustrating. But no matter how natural or cathartic it may seem in the moment, complaining in and of itself does nothing to improve our circumstances. Instead, it locks us into a cycle of negativity and passivity. The energy we expend lamenting our situation is energy we steal from the potential for meaningful action. Complaints can feel like a release, but they rarely lead to resolution. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. Rather than spending their lives voicing grievances about the world, they turned their attention inward and asked, "What can I do?" This approach is not about suppressing real concerns or pretending that injustices don't exist. It's about changing our relationship to adversity, moving from passive despair to active engagement. Stoicism teaches that transformation begins with our own mindset. When we focus entirely on what is wrong, we hand over our power to external events. We adopt a posture of victim, waiting for circumstances or others to change so that we might feel better. But the world does not bend easily to our desires. What we can bend, however, is our response to the world. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about this principle in his Meditations, reminding himself that what happens is often outside our control, but how we interpret and respond to it is always ours to govern. Complaining, he understood, is a squandering of mental clarity and emotional strength. It clouds the mind and fosters helplessness. It becomes easier to narrate a story of defeat than to write one of effort and adaptation. Over time, this habit of complaint becomes a psychological crutch, a way to avoid the discomfort of growth, the fear of failure, or the burden of responsibility. At its core, complaining is a misdirection of our mental energy. It points us away from solutions and traps us in inertia. The Stoics countered this by emphasizing action rooted in reason and virtue. Epictetus, a former slave who became a revered teacher, put it simply, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't a call to Stoic silence or denial of emotion, but a call to higher agency. Rather than lamenting an obstacle, the Stoic asks, what is within my power right now? Action, no matter how small, restores a sense of control and builds momentum. Even incremental effort is more valuable than the most eloquent complaint. This shift in focus from problem possibility is not always easy. Complaining can become a deeply ingrained pattern, reinforced by our environment, our upbringing, or even the culture around us. But it is a habit that can be broken, and breaking it begins with awareness. The moment we catch ourselves complaining, whether aloud or silently, we have an opportunity. We can pause and question the utility of that complaint. Is it moving us forward? Is it illuminating a path toward change? Or is it simply reinforcing a story of frustration and powerlessness? Often, when we honestly examine our complaints, we see that they serve no practical purpose beyond temporary emotional release. But that release comes at a cost. It often leaves us more bitter, more exhausted, and no closer to resolution. The alternative, intentional action, demands more of us. It requires discipline, focus, and the courage to step into discomfort. Yet, it is also profoundly liberating. It reminds us that while we may not choose our circumstances, we always choose our response. When we choose action over complaint, we reclaim authorship over our lives. We stop waiting and start building. We train ourselves to think in terms of options and influence rather than obstacles and limitations. And in doing so, we develop resilience, not by avoiding hardship, but by meeting it with resolve. This is the essence of the Stoic path: to live deliberately, to respond to life's challenges with clarity and strength, and to embody the values we most admire, even when it's difficult. By refusing to indulge in complaint, we sharpen our minds, strengthen our spirits, and become participants in our own transformation. Complaints are easy, action is hard, but only one leads to change. So the next time life presents difficulty, pause before reacting. Don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, what can I do now? Then do it, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And in that choice, your life begins to change, not because the world suddenly cooperates, but because you become someone capable of navigating it with intention and integrity. Action is the antidote to powerlessness. While complaints keep us stagnant and reactive, action propels us forward. It is motion with intention. Every step we take toward a solution reshapes not only our external circumstances, but also our inner landscape. Marcus Aurelius, a man who bore the weight of empire, faced war, betrayal, and deep personal loss, never succumbed to despair or passive resignation. Instead, he reminded himself again and again to remain engaged with life, to meet each challenge with effort, and to let his deeds reflect his values. But action, as the Stoics understood it, is not impulsive or reckless. It must be rooted in wisdom, tempered by discernment, and guided by virtue. Before we act, we must first recognize what lies within our power, what is ours to influence, and what must we let go. Epictetus captured this truth with piercing clarity when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In this light, action becomes a physical embodiment of reasoned response. The challenge, of course, is that action demands courage. It requires us to move beyond the familiar safety complaint and step into the uncertain territory of responsibility. Complaining is effortless. It asks nothing of us but words. Action asks everything. It asks for intention, effort, discipline, and often vulnerability. Yet, every small act in the face of difficulty weakens the grip of helplessness. It builds momentum where there was once inertia, shapes character where there was once avoidance, and opens new paths where there once seemed none. Moreover, action grounds us in the present. Complaints often replay the past or project fears into the future, but action, by nature, happens now. It roots us in the only moment where real change can occur. It connects intention to execution and transforms frustration into purpose. This shift from complaint to action is not merely behavioral. It's transformational. It returns us to our power. It reminds us that we are not mere spectators in our own lives, but active participants. Complaints siphon energy, leaving us stuck in cycles of blame and resentment. Action reclaims that energy and directs it toward growth. It turns problems into challenges, obstacles into opportunities, and stagnation into momentum. This is the essence of Stoic resilience. Not to control everything, but to respond to what we can with clarity, strength, and direction. Without action, all our reflection remains abstract and all our dissatisfaction festers. But with even the smallest action, we break the loop. We shift from brooding to building. To live this principle, begin with awareness. Notice when you complain, whether out loud or silently to yourself. Pause. Ask, what is within my power right now? What step, however small, can I take to improve the situation? Shift your mental gaze from what's wrong to what's possible. Then act. It might be as modest as changing your tone, adjusting your schedule, reaching out for help, or simply reframing a thought. What matters is that you move. The Stoics didn't demand perfection. They honored persistence. They understood that meaningful change arises not from flawless execution, but from sustained, deliberate effort. Setbacks are part of the path, not signs of failure. Each action, however imperfect, is a vote for the person you're becoming. In choosing action over complaint, you train yourself to respond to life with intention. You develop resilience by moving through resistance. You build dignity by refusing to be defined by your circumstances. You align with the truth that while we cannot control everything that happens, we always control how we engage. And in that engagement, we find purpose, strength, and peace. So when frustration threatens to consume you, when obstacles seem immovable, remember, complaining changes nothing. Action changes everything. Choose to act. Choose to engage. Become the change you seek, not because it is easy, but because it is right. And then comes the next essential discipline, speech. Words are among the most powerful tools we possess. They shape perception, convey truth, spark connection, or create division. They can heal or they can wound. The Stoics, committed to lives of reason and virtue, treated speech not as casual expression, but as a moral responsibility. They believe one should speak only when it improves the situation, when words contribute to clarity, comfort, or constructive outcomes. Venting frustration Proving a point or filling silence might feel satisfying, but careless speech often deepens confusion, breeds resentment, and inflames emotion rather than resolving it. In daily life, it's easy to fall into habitual speech, idle chatter, complaint, gossip, or blame. These patterns often arise from emotion or social reflex rather than conscious thought. But the Stoics call for mindfulness in communication. Before speaking, they would pause to consider, are my words necessary? Are they helpful? Do they reflect virtue? Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of the power of silence and the importance of restraint. Be tolerant with others, he wrote, and strict with yourself. This discipline in speech demands humility, empathy, and self-awareness. It's not about silence for its own sake, but about ensuring that when we do speak, our words are deliberate, responsible, and aimed at something higher than ego. Speaking only when it improves the situation cultivates harmony and trust. It invites deeper listening, genuine dialogue, and mutual understanding. It transforms conversation from a platform for ego into a space for wisdom. This principle requires strength, not the loud, reactive kind, but the quiet strength of self-command. It's tempting to speak impulsively when emotions run high or when we feel wronged. But true mastery lies in choosing words that reflect your values rather than your moods. In doing so, you transform your speech into a vehicle for growth, not just for yourself, but for everyone you engage with. In both speech and action, the Stoic path calls us to live with purpose, not to be perfect, but to be principled, not to dominate, but to serve the greater good, to reflect before reacting, to speak with care, and to act with courage. Through this, we become more than people who complain about the world. We become people who help shape it. Restraint in speech is not weakness. It is strength in its highest form. It reflects self-control, mindfulness, and respect for others. In practice, this means cultivating a deep awareness of how your words influence the emotional and mental climate around you. Before responding, pause. Reflect. Ask yourself, what is my intention? Will these words bring clarity, understanding, or resolution? Is this the right time, the right tone, the right place? This moment reflection transforms speech from a reaction into a conscious act. Communication becomes a practice of virtue, guided by intention rather than impulse. By choosing to speak only when your words improve the situation, you contribute to a culture of respect, clarity, and positivity. Your restraint becomes a model of poise in a world too often shaped by haste and hostility. You become a beacon of calm and reason, someone whose presence de-escalates rather than inflames. This doesn't just benefit others. It nurtures your own peace. When you stop using words to discharge frustration and instead use them to uplift, guide, and connect, you create harmony both internally and externally. Aligning your speech with wisdom and virtue strengthens your integrity. When your words consistently reflect your values, you build trust. Not because you speak often, but because when you do, you speak with purpose. People begin to listen when you talk, not out of obligation, but out of respect. In a world flooded with noise, your voice becomes a signal. The Stoic teaching to speak only if it improves the situation is more than etiquette. It's an invitation to wield language as a tool of transformation. It challenges us to move from careless reaction to intentional presence. When practiced daily, this principle grounds us in authenticity, strengthens our relationships, and helps restore civility in a chaotic world. Blame is a silent thief. It drains your power without you noticing. In life's inevitable storms, it's easy to assign fault when things go wrong. When we're disappointed, hurt, or frustrated, blaming others or our circumstances can feel justified, even comforting. But Stoic wisdom urges us to see this reflex for what it is, a quiet surrender of agency. Every time we point a finger outward, we relinquish control. We cast ourselves as victims of fate rather than the authors of our response. Blame seduces us into thinking we are relieving ourselves of responsibility, but it exacts a cost: our energy, our clarity, and our growth. When we fixate on who's at fault, we remain stuck in the problem. Our attention shifts away from action and inward progress. Blame traps us in the past and builds a wall between us and the wisdom we could gain. Marcus Aurelius confronted enormous external chaos, yet he continually reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you'll find strength. In doing so, he modeled the Stoic belief that true power lies in how we respond, not what happens to us. The emotional toll of blame is steep. It fuels resentment, isolates us from others, and distorts our perceptions. It clouds judgment, fractures relationships, and impedes healing. In contrast, responsibility clears a path forward. It calls us to introspect. What part did I play in this? What can I learn? What is within my power to change or accept? This is not self-punishment. It is self-liberation. Responsibility restores freedom because it reorients our focus from what we can't control to what we can. Letting go of blame requires humility, vulnerability, and courage. It asks us to face discomfort rather than deflect it. But in doing so, we gain something profound: resilience. When we accept that life will bring injustice, unpredictability, and hardship, and yet choose to respond with wisdom, we stop reacting like victims. We step into the role of creator, of leader, of grounded human being. Observing your blame patterns is the first step. When they arise, notice them. Then pivot. Move from accusation to action, from fixation to forward motion. Importantly, the Stoics never suggested we ignore wrongdoing. Justice matters. Truth matters. But even when confronting injustice, they emphasize integrity in response. They knew that the energy you bring to the fight determines its outcome. Ultimately, blame drains power by anchoring us to helplessness. Responsibility restores power by grounding us in agency. So when you're tempted to assign fault, pause. Return to your center. Choose ownership over outrage. In that choice lies the beginning of a truly empowered life. Energy spent complaining is energy lost, and it's energy you don't get back. Complaining may feel like a harmless release, a way to express dissatisfaction or connect with others through shared frustration. But the Stoics understood that every moment spent in complaint is a moment stolen from growth, action, and purpose. Each complaint, however small, exacts a toll. It disperses mental clarity, drains emotional strength, and weakens your capacity for meaningful change. Consider how often we complain, not just aloud, but silently in thought. We grumble about others, circumstances, delays, politics, and even the weather. Each instance draws us deeper into a cycle. The act of complaining, the emotional reinforcement, and the mental repetition. This cycle consumes precious energy. Instead of fueling progress, it feeds discontent. Marcus Aurelius, ruling amidst war and uncertainty, knew the temptation to dwell on what was wrong. Yet he wrote consistently about protecting the mind, guarding attention, and choosing focus. He understood energy is finite. Waste it on complaint, and you weaken your will. Complaining strengthens a victim mindset. It rehearses powerlessness. The more we fixate on what's wrong, the more we internalize a belief that we are stuck, that we are at the mercy of events or people. And as that belief deepens, so does our inertia. The Stoic path demands a reversal of this cycle. It teaches us to conserve energy like a vital resource and to redirect it toward what matters: courageous action, intentional growth, and virtuous living. Energy is the fuel behind discipline, integrity, and resilience. When we guard it, we preserve our capacity to face adversity with strength. When we squander on complaints, we deplete the very reserves we need to thrive. Practically, this means becoming vigilant about your thoughts and words. Notice when complaints arise. Ask, is this helping me? Is this necessary? Is my energy better spent elsewhere? Then shift. Even a small action, a reframed thought, a change in posture, a moment of silence, can redirect that energy towards something constructive. The goal is not to suppress all expression or ignore reality. Rather, it is to elevate your response, to rise above habitual negativity, and choose clarity over indulgence. In doing so, you fortify your mind, protect your peace, and preserve your strength. So the next time you feel the urge to complain, remember, you are making a choice about where your energy goes. Let it be a choice that serves you, not one that weakens you. By guarding energy jealously and investing it wisely, we empower ourselves to respond effectively to life's challenges. Practical steps to preserve this energy begin with cultivating awareness of complaint triggers. Notice when your mind starts drifting into negativity or rumination. Pause. Ask yourself, is this complaint solving anything? What purpose does it serve? Then challenge the thought. Reframe the situation with a focus on solutions, or, where no solution is possible, acceptance. This shift redirects energy from friction to forward motion. Gratitude and mindfulness are powerful antidotes to complaint. Gratitude reframes perception, diminishing the weight of difficulties by drawing attention to what remains good, stable, or beautiful. Mindfulness anchors awareness in the present, weakening the compulsive urge to relive grievances or forecast disappointment. Together, they replenish the mental and emotional reserves that complaint depletes. Even the body is affected. Negative thinking activates stress responses, elevating cortisol, straining the nervous system, and eroding physical health. Conserving energy by minimizing complaint is not just an emotional practice. It's a physiological one. It keeps us whole. In relationships, constant complaining corrodes trust and drains the emotional energy of connection. It fosters tension rather than support, criticism rather than collaboration. Choosing constructive communication instead builds harmony, empathy, and mutual resilience. Ultimately, every complaint is a decision to lose power. Every redirection of that impulse is a step toward mastery. The Stoics invite us to reclaim that energy, redirect it, and use it to build the life we seek. So the next time the urge to complain arises, pause and remember, your energy is your power. Protect it, redirect it, use it to create. One of the most transformative teachings of Stoicism is a clear and uncompromising distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This principle is not abstract philosophy. It is a foundation of peace, clarity, and effective living. Trying to fix what you cannot change is like pouring water into a sieve. The effort drains away. Frustration accumulates. But releasing what lies beyond your control liberates your energy and restores your ability to act where it truly matters. Epictetus said it plainly, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This is not resignation. It is not apathy. It is a courageous practice of active acceptance, a willingness to meet life on its terms, not yours. When problems arise, we are often tempted to control every variable. We chase certainty. We resist discomfort. We try to manipulate outcomes. But this resistance generates anxiety. It distorts perception. It wastes effort. And worst of all, it keeps us stuck. Fixing what you can begins with recognizing your sphere of influence. Your thoughts, your choices, your behavior, these are fully yours. Direct your energy there. Cultivate strength, clarity, and virtue through deliberate effort. When you do, you become an agent of change, not in control of everything, but in command of yourself. At the same time, releasing what you can't fix means letting go of what lies beyond you. The past, other people's actions, a twist of fate. This is not giving up. It is a strategic retreat of the mind. It is clarity in action. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with the responsibility of empire, constantly reminded himself to narrow his focus. You have power over your mind, not outside events. He did not surrender his duties, but he refused to let circumstances disturb his inner equilibrium. This distinction brought him resilience amid chaos. To live this way requires humility, the willingness to accept that not everything is yours to fix. It requires self-honesty. Ask, what in this situation is truly mine to influence? Where am I wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable? Let your answers guide your response. This release also requires trust. Trust in the flow of life. Trust in your ability to endure, adapt, and thrive even when outcomes diverge from your hopes. Trust that letting go doesn't mean loss. It means freedom. This mindset changes your relationship with adversity. You no longer struggle against what is. Instead, you work with it. You conserve energy, gain perspective, and move forward with intention rather than force. Emotionally, this distinction is equally powerful. Anxiety often comes from trying to force outcomes, to predict and control. But peace arises when we let go and remain grounded in the present. In relationships, this means accepting others as they are while taking full responsibility for your own conduct. The result is less conflict, more compassion, and deeper connection. Ultimately, to fix what you can and release what you can is to live in alignment with reality. It is to cease fighting unwinnable battles and to focus on the ground where real change is possible. It is a path to peace, power, and profound inner freedom.